Hello everyone, and this chapter is about governmental influence on trade. This is chapter 6, and in this chapter you are going to review the economic and non-economic rationales for trade protectionism, and we're going to explain the major forms of trade controls and their effects on companies' operating decisions. Well, what is your opinion on governmental support to national companies? What I mean is, what do you think of protectionism? As you know, protectionism is an important factor that may affect conducting business internationally. It may affect the ability of foreign producers to compete in your home market. So it's important to understand how governments protect their own economies in order to compete effectively. Well, governments have an important part in developing their own economies. Here are some videos about Singapore, how the government has intervened in developing their economy and their companies. Also, here you have another video about the United Arab Emirates, how this country has been developing thanks to the view or to the decisions that the government have been taking in order to develop their economies. And here is also an example of, for example, China, how they own state-owned enterprises called SOE. For example, in China, these type of companies that are owned by the state have continually underperformed the new private sector companies, and these type of companies owned by the government have more employees under their wing, and their share of the economy has been in decline for the past 10 years. So they also need to take actions in this aspect in order to be more effective and compete in a better way with other countries. Another example, I wanted to talk to you also about how some sectors, for example, in the United States, the production of cotton has been subsidized for a few years, and companies from other parts of the world have been unable to compete in the USA with producers of cotton because they have been protected by their home government. So there are some unfair trade advantages in this case that you also need to observe depending on the industry in which you are going to be working. So why the government intervenes in national trade? There are four main reasons. The first reason, well, is for national defense, right? The second one talks about infant industries. One of the oldest arguments for protectionism is the infant industry arguments, and it holds that a government should shield an emerging industry from foreign competition by guaranteeing it a large share of the domestic market until it can compete on its own. So the government may protect some of their industries because they are not big enough and they have not been developing enough in order to compete with other countries or with other industries from abroad. So that's another reason for national trade intervention. Obviously, a very important factor is to protect employment, right, for fighting on the unemployment, and also to protect some strategic industries. Some of the instruments of trade control can be divided into tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers. When we talk about tariff barriers, we are talking about the export tariff, the import tariff, and the transit tariff. The export tariff is a tariff that you will pay by exporting a product from your home country. For example, here in Mexico, we don't have, I think all of the products don't have an export tariff because our government wants to promote foreign trade, but we do have some import tariffs that also help us protect our companies from foreign competition. So there are some import tariffs as well, and there is a transit tariff. That is a tariff that you pay by passing through a country, right? For example, if you want to export to China and you are going to pass through the United States, probably you are going to pay for a tariff because of passing through their country. And finally, we have the instruments that are non-tariff barriers, for example, the embargo, which is a specific type of quota that prohibits all trade. We have sanctions, Sanctions are like penalties, right, when you disobey the law or a rule. We have also some export controls and dual-use products. There are some products that might have two different uses. So at the entrance of a country, the customs might define if it's allowed to enter the country or not, depending on the dual use. We have also the voluntary export restraints. That is when a country voluntarily reduces its company's exports to a certain country. And then we have quotas, right? The quotas is the most common type of quantitative import or export restrictions. And we have, well, subsidies. As you already know, the subsidies are a form of direct assistance to companies to boost competitiveness, as well as aid and loans from the government, and customs valuation. Customs valuation is also a practice in which the custom can research on the value of a product in case they have some doubts, in case they think the product might have a different value. So I think this is it about chapter 6. Please, if you can read it just to see some more information on the definitions, and good luck on the exam.